Hi everyone, welcome to Raise to Rise podcast, a place where we discuss bite-sized wisdom nuggets with easy-to-follow practices to live a better life. Raise to Rise podcast is supported by Ayurvedic Seva. Ayurvedic Seva is an herbal dietary supplement line set out to change the industry by dedicating the company to quality, safety, and holistic approach on making the wellness journey safe, healthy, and natural. If you want to start adding some natural herbs in your life, then head over to ayurvedicseva.com and use our promo code RAISE2RISE for 30% discount. Once again, it's ayurvedicseva.com and use our promo code RAISE2RISE for 30% discount. I am your host, Mital Patel, a parenting junkie, Ayurveda enthusiast, and an advocate of conscious living. Hey, welcome to Raise to Rise podcast. This is your host, Mital, and today we have another fellow coaches. She is an absolute gem. I love her work and I love her authenticity and, her uniqueness and the energy that she brings on the table. So let's welcome Talia. Talia is a Shetty certified life and success coach. She helps young people who feel lost and confused to find their place in the world and be happy. Her program and coaching approach moves teenagers to discover and build skills to solve problems despite the challenges that they are facing. She strongly believes that learning to consciously use their strengths rather than trying to fix the perceived weaknesses will positively transform teens' success life. And oh my God, how much do we need this in this world right now? Because we're all so really focused on our weaknesses, but Talia really believes, and she actually works on it to bring your strengths out and instead of trying to fix your weaknesses. So in today's episode, let's welcome her because she is going to give us parents some great tips for raising teenagers that will help them to reconnect with their kids and create a meaningful relationship with them. So thank you, Talia, for your work and for your gifts. Welcome to our show. So happy to have you. Can't wait. What are you going to share with us today?
Oh my God, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Mital. And I want to express how grateful I am for you, for the space that you created. It's really incredible that you're doing and helping parents. And I'm passionate about this too. And just thank you.
Oh, thank you. First of all, before we jump on to a real discussion and conversation, I really want to say a huge thank you for choosing to do what you're doing, because helping parents and teenagers reconnect is no joke. It's really no joke, because unconsciously the damage has been done, and when the damage is done, to reconnect those the pieces and the wires, it's a hard job. And so I really commend you for choosing the niche that you have chosen. And working with the youth is another thing that what I have heard from other parents and stuff, that teenagers don't listen. And you're really working with teenagers, and so you gotta have that that patience and the strength and the courage to do it, because what I've heard is teenagers just speak back to you, and they don't take things seriously. So I love what you're doing, and just hats off to you going and daring to do the work that you really are passionate about. So thank you.
Thank you. And it's funny because I do hear that often. It's like, why did you choose to work with teenagers? They're so difficult.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I was like, no, they are not. I don't see them as difficult. I'm really very inspired by them. And I'm a little obsessed with growth mindset and the growth that teenagers can demonstrate with the right tools and support. It's exponential.
Yes.
Like the way their brain works, it's so fascinating to me. And so I seek to empower them. That's what my goal is. But truly, they empower me to be the best version of myself.
Beautifully said. So for those of you who, a little backstory, that Talia was my coach. during our school certification. And so I have had like the firsthand experience working with her, and she actually does know. I mean, she was able to get me out of those childhood and the teenage belief system that I had during school time. And she actually helped me get out of that funk and just get it going. So I've experienced
Thank
your
you so
work. And
much.
a couple of things that I've also learned about Talia was like growth work and how you're so obsessed with the growth itself. And so yeah, I would second that, and I can attest to your uniqueness and your work. So let's get to know you a little more for our listeners' sake. So tell us a bit about why you want to work with teenagers. Yes, you did mention it, but we want to know a little more, like, why teenagers and not parents?
Yeah, I think that it's personal, honestly.
Mm,
When I was a teenager, I was very lost.
mm,
Even though, like, from the outside, you would see just a regular teen, like having her school drama or
mhm.
whatever it is. Like,
Right.
I was good at school. I had like good grades. I wasn't like a trouble child, or
Mm,
but that's the danger, because like on the outside everything was fine, but
mm,
inside there was like dangerous beliefs that were forming,
mm,
and like disempowering and limiting beliefs, and those like perceptions. Like I had a supportive parents,
mm,
and like I didn't have, like, maybe like at like 1 year I was like
mhm.
a little like rebel. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, now I want to do this.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And we all have that.
Yeah, but mostly like I had a good relationship with my parents,
Mm,
but then the thing that it's my perception of my parents
mm,
was different. Like they were giving me support their way,
mhm,
and I needed to receive support
mm.
different way. And it's hard to learn. Like I don't blame them. Like like it's really hard.
Yeah, yeah, no joke. As a parent, I can tell you that it's hard. Sometimes, even though, a parent's intention could be to help kids out, but sometimes, when we're unconscious and when we're not aware, like what our kids really need, it gets difficult. And so one of the things that I noticed, that it's definitely your personal choice. But what I love about it, that you didn't choose to work with parents because you don't think that it's the problem is outside. You think it's like, we need to work on our inner self and not about what others are doing or what others are making choices. So I love that, from the experience. And that's what I really believe too, that because I've had that experience of being a parent, I really think that I can guide other parents. And
Mhm.
so you're coming from an experience like, yes, I've felt it and this is really needed. And I wish everybody hears
Yeah,
and,
I
empowers
I
teenagers.
just like I actually like reconnected to my kind of childhood dream. I wanted to be
Mm.
a teacher.
Oh, wow. Hey, 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 amen to that, because I wanted to be a teacher too at a young age.
There
So
we
like,
go.
see, we're like on the same path. I mean, we've had all these conversations before too, but I don't think we've ever known that we both wanted to be a teacher.
I know, that's interesting. That's true.
That
And
is so
I
funny.
think this, like as you said, it starts with you,
Mm,
100%.
mm-hmm,
But that's also why I see the holistic approach. Like
mm-hmm,
there are parenting coaches, there are coaches that for educators, and I think
mm-hmm.
it's so important to introduce coaching at schools.
Yes,
And definitely they need individual coaching. Like teenagers need their
absolutely.
own coach, and coming that, like bringing that tools together is so
Mm-hmm.
powerful.
Absolutely. And that's why, like, I really believe, and that's why I wanted to bring, the series of bringing the coaches out up front, and, for our listeners to understand, like, how important it is to have a coach,
Mm.
and what can a coach do or bring in your life. It's incredible. I have experienced it, and I really think that everyone should experience. So listeners, stay tuned, because we're gonna share all the details about Talia. So if you have that teenager who is in trouble, or or
I'm
you
not even
think,
in trouble, like
right,
sometimes, yeah.
it's when parents think that, oh, they're in trouble, or sometimes, it's like how you mentioned, internally we don't even know what's going on. We're so lost. So if you have a teenager, you know, who think they're lost and who you really think that they can do much more but they're not doing, then reach out to Talia, and we're going to share all her details, because let's empower our kids. And sometimes helping our kids is just not being by their help, but bringing the help in. That what makes a huge difference. So we can't do everything on our own. So let's bring in the professionals who are trained and who are, like, you know, who are experienced, who are qualified to do the work. So Talia is your girl.
Honestly, I want to say how I'm not a parent yet, and I don't know, in such a all like for parents and like what they do, because like as a parent, I see you wearing so many hats. It's insane. Like you're like this, like even like sometimes a math teacher, sometimes you're like a theater helper, sometimes like you sports cheerleader, like everything. But as you said, there is help out there.
Exactly.
And sometimes like the best way to help is to be unbiased and detached. And as a parent, I think
it's hard.
Probably, like it's really
so hard. But again, like, you know, as long as you're bringing that qualified, trained help for your kid, you should feel like, you know, good about it. Okay, I couldn't help my son or my daughter. Let me bring in the help. Let them do their work. So that actually, just because we're talking a lot about parents and kids, I really wanted to ask, because, you know, you help them reconnect. So tell us, what do you mean by reconnect, and how can parents, you know, learn or reconnect and do you have any tips for us?
Yeah. So I heard a lot from parents kind of that when their kid becomes a teenager, it's like a new person. And they say like, I don't know this person anymore. Like yesterday it was my sweet, nice baby. And today is this like monster that
oh my gosh, I've heard the same thing.
But but in truth, like partially it is truth, because at that age it's the developmental stage of their of the brain, and like how their body develops,
and all these hormonal imbalances.
But it's also like just part of it is physiological, right?
Yes.
And part is that at this time they consciously become aware of their identity, and they try out different identities. It's like it's trial and error. Like they try out, and they're like, oh, like if I do this, what happens? Let's see.
They're very curious at that stage. So the curiosity brings up this experimenting with everything. Exactly. It's like a little scientist growing inside.
Right? Yeah, it is. And I mean, it's kind of, as you say, I like the scientist. Yes, like it's it can be like a crazy one. But with right tools and support, you can still like encourage this curiosity without kind of jeopardizing their safety.
I like that.
And the something I wanted to add, now I'm slipping my hand.
That's okay. And it's amazing how you mentioned, like, because they're in that stage of creating identities, and with the right tools we can steer the ship, because right now there's a storm going on internally, like, because it's all physiological effects. This is all, you know, the psychologically they're growing, and they're actually now out there. So the societal influence is also increasing. And so it's the parents, we need to facilitate. And when we're not like experienced enough, let's bring in that help, and, you know, give them that tools that can help them get their, you know, understand the difference between the identities and what do they really like to do, or what do they really want to do, and not feel lost. Like how
I love like how you always bring the best metaphors and like creating those pictures. I love it. And like truly, like I want to build on this like storm type of picture, you know, like when there is a storm and like they panic, right? Like what happens, like they don't understand what's going on with their bodies. They don't understand what's going on with like their emotions around the world, like all of that. They panic. So if you as a parent panic with them,
Mm.
you imagine what
Make
happens.
it worse.
Exactly.
It's gonna make it worse.
Like that ship, I don't know where it's going.
Where it's going. No, absolutely.
So like, yeah, it's in your hands
Mm-hmm.
to learn, also
Mm-hmm.
to understand and seek understanding, and that's why I call it like reconnection, because, and I feel like it resonates with like your connection and
Yes.
connection, because
Yes.
you build that connection with them as toddlers, and like
Mm-hmm.
obviously like after birth it's like all like so strong and
Mm-hmm.
moving on, and there is part when like it starts kind of
Disconnecting, and it's like
disconnecting.
fizzling out.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. No, I agree. And that's why it's so, but again, like, when unconsciously we parents become so busy with maintaining our complex lives that
Mm.
sometimes we lose out on that connection, and it just, everything just gets way too much to handle. And that's why I like, I really focus on building that connection. And then Talia comes in and focuses on reconnecting. So I love how our paths just like, crossed, and we're like simultaneously going hand on hand together. So parents out there, you know where to
Got
go.
you.
We got you. We got your back. Like, let's do this together, because when we heal and empower our kids, that's when we're going to have that world that we're like, we really want to live in. We can leave the legacy that we really want to live.
Exactly. That's my vision to have, like, that's like kind of behind the scenes
Yeah.
while doing it too. It's I do want to create a world of self-aware people and passionate, and who live in alignment with themselves, and how beautiful it's gonna be.
Absolutely. I second that vision, and we're all together in this, and everybody, when chip in their energy, their gifts, and willingness to get the
Mm-hmm.
help is what's gonna make the difference. So let's look into this, because you talked about the panics, and how when the storm hits inside, we all panic. So yeah, in the history of humanity right now, thanks to pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
how can parents, because there's so much panic going on with the schoolwork and all that, how can us
Mm-hmm.
parents support, or how can parents support their teenagers through these current challenges of virtual learnings? Because this is like a challenge at the moment, and I'm
Oh my God,
sure
so big.
there's so much panic going on at the moment.
Oh yes, so much. I don't know if I can swear, but like I heard so many teenagers says like online learning just sucks.
Yes, yes.
And it was
It's
just
not
like
easy.
it's so now like self-isolation, all of these, like so much pressure on them. But in terms of like specifically like creating that kind of like safe and maybe even efficient environment for them to keep up with the learnings, it's creating certain routines and schedules,
Mm.
kind of like help them create
Mm-hmm.
their own,
Mm-hmm.
and also like having the allocated space for them to take their classes, because we know that energy stays
Yep.
there, so like they can like their brain can pick up on like, okay, this is the place where my brain needs to be focused, where I need
Mm-hmm.
to study.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to highlight, like, schedules don't mean like rigid schedules, like you need to
Yes.
have
You need a
flexibility.
leeway. Yeah, you need that room to move around and
Yeah.
fluctuate. I love that point. I mean, I didn't know that, this is what you're gonna, mention about the structure. I really focus on that rhythm and the structure with, with my kids. And
Mm-hmm.
it actually helps, because we're also in the, whole virtual learning. And when the kids are not used to of this whole computers and like, just being at home, the isolation feels daunting.
Yeah.
And I can now understand, because you've heard the stories, like how teenager must be wondering, because I was under impression like, oh, teenager must love, because they love the computers and they want to be on their computers. But now that from hearing from you, it's like, wow, I didn't think that, or I didn't think that teenagers would have the same views, like, oh, the isolation sucks, and
Right.
the learning, virtual learning, is just not fun.
Not at all. I mean, like, even, there's like misconception that some introverted kids
Mm.
probably liked it more, or like kind of
Mm-hmm.
like enjoyed. Not at all. Like, it's introverted kids, like they still need that
That
connection.
connection.
And building that connection, especially at that age, is very important. Having like a kind of like a face-to-face, in-person experience. And also because like school, like sometimes like you like, you know, like again, like misconception that they say like, well, but you can hang out with your friends, like, or like kind of like after the lockdown, you could still like chat with your friends on the phone, on the camera.
It's not the same.
But it's not the same. But it's also important that when a child, like teenager especially, goes to school, he doesn't only interact with his or her established friends. The whole community, that the feeling of community there. And you always build and look out to build new connections and new friendships. And that's what's really, really missing. It's like expansion, right? You said like, like curiosity. They need to go out there and look for new things and new friends.
I really love that you brought the point of community there, because, you know, as a society too, like how, if you have a community, if we have a community, we thrive, because we feel that sense of security, like, oh, somebody, even if I trip over, somebody's going to come out there and going to help me out. Where if you're home, or, you know, if you're isolated, even if I trip out, nobody's going to come and help me out. I'm going to have to, get up by myself. So I love the sense of community, and, you know, how you brought the point of, you know, the curiosity, and it helps us build that connection with the outer world, and we make, you know, new friends, and we, you know, you get to witness and see new experiences that we can't at the moment when in lockdown inside. I love how you're, you know, bringing those myths also about the, you know, introverts and the schooling. That's great. So let's look into it, since you work with teenagers and you have had a great experience. What are some of the parent-teen relationship destroyers that you have observed?
Oh man. I think that the biggest one is when they lose trust between like parent and teenager. It then goes both ways. And what I found, there are different ways of losing trust, right? And one thing that I do, what related to like specifically with parenting, is the punishments. And like, you know, like I'm in for discipline, but discipline doesn't mean punishment. It doesn't equal punishment. Like punishment creates, and I'm sure that you've talked like about these on your platforms, like it creates like shame, like pain, like this like blame, like all like those like feelings, and also like it doesn't make them do better if you make them feel worse. Like that doesn't work like that. I don't know where that came from. Like it doesn't work. And what needs to be created is clear expectations and clear consequences.
Yes.
So like you still, as a parent, you still have authority, you still have your say, because you create those rules, and you discuss with them and discuss like, okay, like you agree, like, okay, this is reasonable. Yes. So like the consequences also need to be correlated with the rule. Right? Not like, oh, like if you go on your phone, like whatever, like extra time you're not supposed to go, and then you lose some other privileges going out with friends, you know, right? It's like, it's different. Like, it's like, if you go on phone, take my phone, you know? Like, it's like, it needs to be kind of like reasonable and connected. So they make those cause and effect connection.
It's amazing that you brought that point. And I truly, truly believe in, you know, that how you said, clear up the expectations, have that non-negotiables, have that boundary set with your kids, like, because they're not gonna know what they can't read your mind. In our mind, you know, in our mind, we're like, okay, he or she, you know, is going out with friend. Oh, and then we go into what if mode, and then we assume, and then we're like, okay, no, you can't go. But instead, have that clear communication with your child, and set those boundaries ahead of time, not at the moment when things are happening, not in the heat of the moment. Don't touch those points at then. Rather, you need to do this ahead of time,
Exactly.
before this even gets to that point. Because
Mhm.
when the milk is boiling, and then you were like, okay, now let it boil, and then you were trying to turn off, well, it's gonna overflow.
Yeah.
You can't do that, because then it's just it
And I think that
ruins.
it creates like that mistrust from the child,
Mm-hmm.
from the like teenager, because, and I heard that, like I heard them like confining with me, like saying like, I try, like I do like what they ask, and
Mm-hmm.
then I don't get the result
Right.
because the result is not
Right.
beforehand established. So it's, yeah,
Right.
it's like mistrust. And
Mm-hmm.
but also like on my part, like I through like
Mm-hmm.
questioning and like thought
Yes.
provoking, like I encourage them to, okay, go out and like
Mm-hmm.
clarify the rules, because it's
Mm-hmm.
also on you. Like you can't always blame the parent, like,
Parents.
oh,
Yep.
they did something wrong. It's like, no.
No. Yep. Yep. I like that point, and that you brought up about the questions, and that's how it's coming up. That's why I love coaching, because it's not about advising the. So it's not like you advise the teenagers like, okay, you do this step one,
Mm,
step two. No,
not at all.
it's that us coaches ask the question and give the space for them to take out what's inside. And that's why I love coaching, because it brings the point out, and it gives them the sense of security, like, you know what, I can speak up. And
Mm,
that's why probably, that's why you probably had a experience of teenager not being difficult, because you're giving them that space, and the parents are not able to give that space in the heat of the moment, because they're not conscious yet. And about the fact, and unconsciously, not that that's their intention, but it's happening. It just happens because the cause and effect, because they don't take care of their own priorities, and they don't set up the whole boundaries and expectations up front. Now the effects is like, okay, it's gonna fizzle out. It's gonna get to the point where you don't want it to go.
yeah.
So I love the fact that you brought that's a big destroyer, and I truly 100% agree that the punishment, and that's like a big destroyer of the relationship between parent and child, teenager, anyone.
Yeah.
So that actually brings up, because you asked, like, you mentioned like how you're asking the right questions for teenager to communicate with you. Tell us a little bit about your current projects and programs that you're working on.
Yeah, thank you for asking and
Yeah.
giving me opportunity to share. I mostly work one-on-one
Mm-hmm.
coaching with teenagers, and I do want to clarify that whenever I start working with teenagers, I always have a connecting call with a parent, and it is very important for me that the parent trusts me
Mm-hmm.
and understands the coaching relationships, and
Wow.
that idea that I'm not on their agenda
Mm-hmm.
with my client, like with
Mm-hmm.
the teenager. I'm there
Mm-hmm.
for them, for the
Mm-hmm. For
teenager.
the teenager, yeah.
Yes, and that creates that safe space for them
Mm-hmm.
to share with me, because they know that this will not be shared with the parent.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so like one-on-one coaching. And I know, like, just dropping out there that I'm also doing a grad student program,
Mm-hmm.
which is like in the works right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be launched probably like quarter to 2021.
Nice.
But I'll keep you, posted.
Yes, no,
Like,
definitely, because that is an amazing thing that you're doing. First of all, I do want to commend that you're clarifying it to the parent, like, and making sure that they trust you with their kid, and also you're clarifying that you're not on the agenda as per the parent, but you're there for the teenager. And by the way, I also want to throw this out, that being a coach, Natalia also possessed the law firm background. She is an attorney, right? Am I correct?
yes,
Yes.
yes, and
So
that's
she's bringing her that experience of, she's aware of the laws, she's aware to to bring the clarity in, and so that there's no because teenagers, young, and then people might think that you're brainwashing, but nothing like that happens here. She follows she's got contracts, and we work through. We're professional people. Come on,
exactly.
we
Yeah,
work
that's
under. We studied under. Yes, we studied under the umbrella of Shetty. So we bring the tools, and we stay in our limits, and we know our boundaries. And the second thing I really want to say that, so yeah, that's one-on-one, but also the program that you're building for grads. Like, how many of us, I mean, when I graduated, I did not know what I really want to do. And I felt so lost. Like, I didn't know what direction I can go. I would have benefited with your program back then if you had it. Like, I would have been the first
I
one.
would too. That's also like why, I mean, I guess like I go with what feels personal and close to my heart. I know how like I went to law school, so like I know how stressful it was, how like the schedules, the overlap, all of this like together, and the pressure of what's next, what I'm gonna do. So I do want to help students to overcome their fears and to know like their why they actually were in grad school from the beginning. No,
I love that.
They
so
go there to clarify.
For sure. So if you have a teenager who's graduating or who is in school, just reach out to Talia, and we're going to share all her details in the show notes. So before I let you go, this was, by the way, this was fantastic. I loved having you. This conversation can go on and on, but because of the sake of our listeners, if you were to share words of wisdom for a parent and a teenager who wants to be, on a consciously connected journey with each other, what would you say?
I have this, like, I don't know if it's controversial or not, but talk less, listen more.
Ooh, love that. It is not controversial at all. Like,
listen. It sounds simple, but it's so profound.
Because most of the time we listen to our, if at all we're listening to our kids, it's about to reply them. It's like, to correct them. We never listen to
give advice
with them. Yeah, it's always like, no, there are parents, there are guides, there are coaches. Let them do their job. Like, let me be a parent. Let me just listen to my kid, what his or her needs are. And so I love that those wisdom of words, like, just listen more and talk less. So thank you so much, Talia, for coming to our show and, sharing your energy and your insights and the words of wisdom and your journey and how personal this is and your decisions are. So we really appreciate you, and we would love to have you again, because this was a fired up conversation. I can just talk for hours and hours.
There's so much more that we can share about this parent teenager journey. I love this, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. So for those of us who who are listening to us, stay tuned, because we're gonna bring her back, because we can't just end it at that point, because she's got a lot to share. And build that connection, because we have that common theme of building that connection and reconnection. So we appreciate you, and thank you for coming to our show.
Thank you all.
Thanks for listening to Raise to Rise podcast. We would absolutely love to hear your thoughts about today's episode. Please let me know you have listened to this episode and fill me with your aha moment. Share it on Instagram, tag me with #RaiseToRise or @RaiseToRise, and I would love to share those to my stories and shout you out there. I would also love if you can subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It's our brand new podcast launch, and we have some bonus giveaways going on for the top raters and reviewers. Also, I would love to send you my 7-day parenting journal absolutely for free. All you gotta do is leave me a review in the iTunes store, take a screenshot, and email it over at raisetorisepodcast@gmail.com. Again, take a screenshot of the review and email me at raisetorisepodcast@gmail.com, and I will send you the 7-day parenting journal absolutely for free. Thank you so much for being the active listener of this podcast. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you for raising your consciousness and rising as joyful beings.